Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2000 remake, Get Carter. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I would like to give a special shout out to Steven for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Get Carter, to me personally, is a gem. I've always liked this film ever since I blind bought it on VHS for $1 at my local Goodwill. And it's a film that, to me personally, just gets better with age. I don't really understand why it got nothing but scathing, bad reviews when it came out. I think at this time, Stallone was in a bit of a slump, and I think there were a lot of critics who just wanted to bury him for good. And so they were overly harsh on this film. I think another factor is that there were a lot of people who were fans of the original and they felt that this was besmirching on its legacy or that it was inferior. And I know a lot of people feel that way when it comes to this film being inferior to the original, but I'm one of the few people that actually like it more. I like it more than the original. That's just my personal take on things. I don't think the original is a bad film. I just thought it was just kind of there. Get Carter, to me, though, I thought was better, and I thought it had a more compelling script overall, and I think Stallone's a much more believable fixer or financial adjuster, so to speak, than Michael Caine. And no offense to Michael Caine, but I mean, Stallone has a certain presence and a certain physical presence that Caine just cannot even come close to bringing to the screen. And I love the way that this film looks. I think the direction by Stephen K is spectacular. I think he did a really great job directing this movie. It's very slick. It's very stylish. It's very polished. It's a film that visually is very daring. It's a very daring film when it comes to its visuals. There's a lot of different sort of camera angles and techniques. There's various amounts and different types of zooms and pans. The camera, there are moments where it will actually spin around, or it'll settle at an angle, or it'll be tilted, or it'll move a certain way. And it just leads to a film visually that is really fun to watch. And it adds to the film in a multitude of ways because it just makes it stand out from a lot of the other films from around this particular time period with this very ambitious direction. And it makes scenes that on paper just seem to be rather simple and nothing really that special, like a fight in an elevator or a confrontation in a club. Just something that is just visually dazzling. And I love the way that he shot the car chases, the couple car chases that were featured in the film. It really did a good job maximizing whatever amount of adrenaline that he could possibly squeeze out of those sequences, because it's not like it's a Fast and the Furious kind of thing. Like the car chases are there's not a lot of explosions, there's not really a ton of gunplay, but just the way that they were shot was still really exciting and still provided a rush. And so I think in a large part it's due to the direction by Stephen K. It honestly kind of reminded me of some old school direction from car chases you would see in films like Bullet or The French Connection. And overall, yeah, I think Stephen K did a really strong job with this. And I don't know what happened. Like, after this bombed, he never really got another shot to do anything other than more direct to video movies and direct to video films about, like, I mean, well, he did Boogeyman, but then after that bombed, then he was just doing direct to video films that were based on true stories about serial killers, like the Craigslist killer, the BTK killer. And it just didn't pan out for him, but which is too bad because the techniques that he showcases in this film alone are better than the direction that I've seen from certain directors who have done many more films in the industry than Kay has or had the opportunity to do. It's written by David McKenna, and I think McKenna did a really solid job writing this film. It's a very straightforward, very simple, right to the punch screenplay, but it's effective. It works. It deals with this man named Jack Carter who, after the death of his brother, he returns home to Seattle after learning that his brother Richie was killed in a drunk driving accident. And he's trying to figure out what happened to his brother. Did his brother die of natural causes? Did he die of a drunk driving accident? Or was there something more to it? So it's a bit of a murder mystery there because he's trying to figure out what happened to his brother. And then there's a really sweet heart to it, in my opinion, that really adds to the overall story involving Jack's niece, Doreen, where she's estranged from her mother and, of course, her father because her father passed away. And there are some really sweet moments between Doreen and Jack where they bond together and they really show this really sweet connection between an uncle and a niece. And when Jack finds out that there was something deeper and something darker involving why his brother was killed, and it actually is directly connected to Doreen, he then goes on a rampage, basically, just beating the crap out of everyone that he possibly can find, getting revenge, and taking out everybody who was involved in killing his brother, and also hurting Doreen because Doreen was taken advantage of sexually by people who were a part of the group that wound up killing his brother. And the whole reason why his brother was killed is to cover up a lot of stuff involving uh, him and his daughter and the connection that the daughter has with these higher ups. And there's a lot of stuff that's revealed throughout the script in terms of the people who were involved or in on it. You have this rich guy, this entrepreneur who built a computer program and is worth like $900 million, named Jeremy Kinnear. And throughout the script, he's just trying to save his own ass because he made a deal with this shady guy and Cyrus who decided to act on his own and take out Richie, and then also try to get involved with what's going on with Doreen and this CD that has the footage of Doreen being abused. And there's also a twist at the end involving somebody that is Carter's boss, his employer, and a supposed friend of his brother Richie. But then there's a double cross involving Brumby. And I like that there's these other guys that also show up throughout the story, like Con McCarty, who shows up to try to intimidate Jack and try to take him out, but Jack makes short work of him and his henchmen. But that adds an extra bit of tension to things because of the fact that this guy is always trying to get to Jack while Jack is trying to go on his quest for revenge, to get revenge for the death of his brother and for the death of his niece's innocence. that was ripped away from her when she was sexually assaulted. And there's just a lot of grit to it and rawness and some genuine real moments of heart, like the scene where Jack is talking to Doreen while she's on the roof of her apartment, and she ultimately tells him what happened to her, and it's tragic and it's genuinely heartbreaking. But the moments with Jack being there to console her is just really good stuff. It's really well written, and I like that the way that Carter is written. He's not a Superman type. He's not a typical Stallone character who can eat bullets or can just beat up everybody and a larger than life action hero. That's not really what Carter is. Jack is, he's a fixer. He's an adjuster guy. He works in Vegas. Getting people to pay the money that they owe, and sometimes he has to do it with force. And so he's more of a force here in a way where he's not like an unstoppable force, but he's more in a way kind of like a bull. He's tough like a bull. He can take hits, he can deliver them, but he can be tamed. There are some moments where he's not able to necessarily get the upper hand. He has to use his wits and his intelligence to try to get out of certain situations or try to solve this mystery. And I like that about it. I like that you have that moment where he gets humbled and he gets beat up by Cyrus, only for him to retaliate and you know knock Cyrus out, and then have the gun to his head, but then not necessarily follow through with the pulling the trigger. But I'm not entirely sure if that is the case though, because it seems like I guess he does kill him, but he was about to shoot him, but then he didn't do that. That's one aspect of the script that's a bit like I don't know if Cyrus is actually killed or not. It almost looks like he got beat to death, but why would he point the gun at his head if he was beat to death? Like that just doesn't really resonate the right way for me. But I like that. I like the swift turnaround. Like yeah, he showed his age. He showed how he's not necessarily as good of a fighter as other people like Cyrus are, but he then turned it around, turned the tables around on Cyrus pretty soon after. And I like that about the script. And I like that you have a character who's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He killed the guy who sexually assaulted his niece, and I love how that sequence is written, by the way, because he tells him you killed yourself, and then I like the approach that it has. Instead of showing him throw the guy off the balcony, you have this really interesting different approach where you just see the aftermath where the guy is splayed out on his car and there's blood pouring from his head, and then you hear the car sirens, the car alarm, and then Jack just walks past. I like that a lot, actually. I feel that was a really a different take on things, and this script has a lot of moments like that. And I love how it ends with, just not necessarily with Carter taking his niece along for the ride with him while he's on the run. They just have a couple more bonding moments. Carter's talking about how he he hopes that, you know, she turns out well and everything's going to be good, and it just goes on his way. And I like that about it. I even like that he didn't kill the rich guy. Like, he just made him piss his pants out of fear, essentially. He fired the gun around his head, but he didn't kill him. He told him, I'm going to give you a second chance. I'm going to give you a chance to do something that I never had, a second chance. So that's different. That's not what you would necessarily expect. When he's on this quest for revenge, and he's driven by rage and grief, he actually has a moment of clarity there, which was refreshing, and definitely made the script, in my opinion, stand out in a good way yet again. And another thing about the script that I think is great is the jabs, not just the physical jabs that Carter delivers, but the verbal jabs that Carter delivers throughout the film. There's some really fun verbal jabs that the script provides Stallone with. So yeah, I think it is. I think it's legitimately a good script, and it portrays Carter as a guy who has a nice heart, but he does a very dirty and violent job, and it doesn't stray away from that. Yeah, I liked how the script portrayed Jack Carter as a rough and tumble guy. You know, he's not a squeaky clean personality who just happens to do a dirty job. Like, he's a guy who doesn't have the best luck with women. He's a guy who's kind of distant. He has this reputation of being a bad boy, a bad brother. You know, the tough guy, the guy who's uh, not necessarily the best all around person. But when it comes to messing with his family, and when it comes to Doreen in particular, you see a side of him that shows a more varied look at his personality and who he is. And it just makes him a much more interesting character. And I think that the script, in a lot of ways, really does exemplify that. It shows a lot of these different characters as realistically as possible, with different nuances and different layers. So yeah, I generally do feel that it's a good screenplay. Now, I also think that Get Carter has a pretty good cast as well. I think Sylvester Stallone delivers one of his better performances of his career as Jack Carter. He still has tons of charisma, still has a very strong screen presence in this. He's intimidating when he needs to be, but he's also charming, and shows a genuine amount of spirit, and has moments where he really shows some down to earth aspects of his character, but he also shows this character as believably menacing at times, an imposing presence, and as a believable man on the edge who's driven and fueled by revenge. I think Miranda Richardson is good in the little bit that she has as Gloria Carter. Rachel A. Cook is excellent. She's amazing as Doreen. I honestly think it's one of her better performances of her career. And I think the scenes with her and Stallone are really good. I think they're great. I think the two of them have a really excellent chemistry with one another. The rapport with each other when it comes to the scenes that they're in is really top notch. Alan Cumming was great as Jeremy Kinnear, just an absolute, just sniveling, just shrew of a man. You know, the kind of guy who is just willing to do whatever it takes to save his own ass, and yet a very believable American accent as well. Mickey Rourke was definitely quite the presence himself as Cyrus. He was a good villain. Honestly, I wish he was in it more. I wish he had more scenes because of how good of a job he did. especially when it comes to the scenes between him and Stallone. And Stallone vouched for him. It was Stallone's idea to get him in the movie, and Stallone had to essentially convince the producers in the studio to take a chance on him, and it paid off. He showed up every day on set on time. He didn't show up late. He wasn't intoxicated or anything or under the influence. So, yeah, Mickey Rourke definitely delivered his A game here, and it really does show. John C. McGinley was also good as Caine. McCarty, he brought his own viciousness to the character that fit it well. Michael Caine was good in his small role as Brumby. Rhona Mitra was pretty solid as Geraldine. So yeah, overall, I genuinely feel that it's a good cast, and I think the cinematography by Mario Fiore and Jeffrey Greenberg is for the most part pretty good. I think there are some moments with the cinematography where it can kind of look a little too similar from one scene to the next, but it's not too bad. And the editing at times is very unique and out there, and there are moments where it's kind of brilliant because of the way that the sequences are edited, because it really creates a very unique atmosphere and mood. But then there's other times where the editing's a bit distracting and a bit too gimmicky. So I think that the editing at times can be a little bit of a mixed bag, but I think for the most part it's still relatively a positive when it comes to the overall film. I also like the score by Tyler Bates. I think he did a good job with it. And I like some of the other songs that they use for the soundtrack. And yeah, I also think it goes by at a good pace. It's only an hour and 30 something minutes with the end credits, so it's not like, I mean, without the end credits, take out the end credits, it's only like an hour and 30 something minutes, so it doesn't really get to the point where it's that boring or that dull. I don't think there are moments where its impact is deadened that much because of the pacing. So yeah, I really enjoy this one. I think it's a diamond in the rough. I think that it's not as bad as its reputation suggests, and honestly, so yeah, I really enjoy Get Carter. I think it's not as bad as his reputation might suggest, and if you're a fan of Stallone, I definitely would recommend checking it out. And even if you're not a super big fan of his, and you just like these kind of raw uh, crime uh, drama films, I think it's worth watching because it definitely does pack a punch in that regard. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Get Carter, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.